HarperCollins presents Wedding Bells at Butterfly Cove by Sarah Bennett, read by Rachel Bavidge. Chapter 1. May 2016. Mummy. The whispered voice next to her ear woke Kiki. She swam up through the layers of drowsiness, noting the darkness in the room, and wondered what time it was. Mummy. A little shake of her shoulder added this time. Matty, is everything all right, darling? She matched his whisper, but it wasn't enough to avoid disturbing Neil. He rolled over with a grumble. Whatever it is, take it somewhere else. I've got to be up in a couple of hours. Kiki slipped from beneath the quilt and used her toes to locate her slippers. After tucking her feet in the thin mules, she ushered her son towards the sliver of light shining from the landing. She pulled the bedroom door closed behind her, then crouched down to look at her beloved boy. Sweaty strands of dark brown hair clung to his forehead, and his cheeks shone with a feverish glow. He nibbled his bottom lip. I didn't mean to wake Daddy. The gleam of worry in his eyes stabbed her in the heart. Neil was perfectly capable of making everyone's life a misery at the slightest provocation. She forced a smile as she smoothed the damp hair from his brow. Don't worry about that. He'll be fast asleep again by now. Did you have a bad dream? Matty shook his head. I don't feel very... He cut himself off with a hand over his mouth, and his whole body convulsed in a shuddering heave, sending a stream of vomit through his splayed fingers and down the front of them both. Tears of shock and upset glinted in his eyes, and she scooped him up in her arms, swallowing down the echoing hitch in her own stomach. She carried him quickly into the bathroom and just managed to settle him on his knees in front of the toilet before another gush of bitter-smelling liquid spewed forth. Poor Poppet, poor darling, she murmured, rubbing circles on his back as he shivered and shook. The front of her nightdress clung damply to her body, but she pushed the unpleasant sensation to the back of her mind to focus on Matty. He gasped like a little fish out of water, swallowing and panting. She knew the pattern well. This was just a brief respite in the process. He muttered and lurched forward again. This would be the last of it now. Kiki stroked his hair until he subsided into breathy sobs, sinking down until his head rested on the cold rim of the toilet. Better out than in, that's what they say. She rose from her cramped position by his side to rinse her hands under the tap. Grabbing a dark green flannel from the edge of the sink, she soaked it in cold water, then bent down to turn Matty towards her. Look up, darling. He lifted his pale little face, and she held his chin in a light grip as she wiped the tears, sweat, and other less pleasant things from his skin. A quick rinse of the cloth, and she folded it into a square. Hold this against your head a minute, can you? He nodded weakly and clutched the flannel with a shaky hand. Confident he'd be okay for a couple of minutes, she left him to go and check his bedroom and fetch some clean pyjamas. His bedding and carpet were mercifully clean, and she sent up a silent prayer of thanks that at least she wasn't faced with changing the sheets at... She glanced at the Lego Batman clock on the dressing table and winced. 3 a.m. Pausing at the airing cupboard on the landing, she dug out a T-shirt and a pair of leggings for herself and returned to the bathroom. A quick change and a teeth clean, and they were both soon tucked into Matty's single bed. How's your tummy now? Still sore? She feathered her fingers through his silky soft hair. The deep brown strands matched her own, but his soulful blue eyes were all his father's. She'd fallen for a bigger version of those baby blues before she'd known the truth. A twinkling look and a sweet smile could mask a monster. Neil had smiled, flirted, and flattered his way into her life, and she had lapped up the attention like a parched flower, blooming into a blushing 18-year-old bride. His earnest focus on her, his need to know her every movement, had seemed exciting. He needed her with him, couldn't stop thinking about her, worried someone else might snatch the prize of her from under his nose. Oh, the lies he'd told her had been music to her innocent ears. Like Helen of Troy and Paris, theirs was a love that would burn through space and time. like Heathcliff and Cathy, like...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?